Hey guys, Saf here with another Raid Shadow Legends video. Today's video is all about the Forge. This area of the game is very powerful and very important, especially if you're in the mid game or you're farming Doom Tower bosses in the late game. You can get access to some very good high quality gear for a lot less trouble, a lot less effort, and you can control it somewhat, although there are things in the Forge that are very sneaky that even I didn't even know about. I've had to re-record this video entirely from scratch because I was talking with Senti, just double checking my math with him, making sure that everything was okay. Second pair of eyes is always good with these sorts of things. And he pointed out some things in the Forge that probably nobody knows about that actually is very important and very sneaky on Playroom's part. So the video is going to cover what the Forge is, how you farm it, where you get everything, how to use your Forge charms to the best of your ability to maximize your potential here, and then some tips and tricks to optimize the Forge for general gameplay and everything else that happens in the game. So the Forge will unlock, I think, around about level 35 for players, and initially probably the main sets you're going to be creating are the Perception and Resilience sets. You will farm these materials from Faction Wars. You need Magisteel on every single recipe, and those can be earned from the Classic Arena. The higher tier you get in the Classic Arena, the more Magisteel you get. It gives you an incentive to sit in gold beyond just the gold medals that you will get for the Great Hall. In addition, we have some premium sets that I would call it in Swift Parry and Deflection. You need core hammers for this. You cannot farm core hammers. They will only appear in events and tournaments, although they are pretty regular, I think. If we look in the current Dungeon Divers that has been running, I think there's about 10. Yeah, there's two sets of 5 here, so you've got 10. I think the Artifact Enhancement here is 10 on the second row. So those things are acquired from events and tournaments. You can't farm them, but they will give you access to Swift Parry, which is a very good set for Arena. The other things you can make in here are obviously the Doom Tower bosses. Every boss will drop its own unique Forge material. The higher the stage you farm, especially in hard, the better quality materials you will get. And we have sets from every single rotation. You can pick up these materials and keep them in your Forge for as long as you need them until you're ready to craft them. There is no time sensitivity involved here. The final 2 sets then come from the Forge Pass, basically the reworked Battle Pass. We had Instinct for Season 1 and 2, and Season 3 that is now active, we have Bolster, and again, they have their own unique materials that you can craft. You cannot mix and match these, you have to farm them from the specific areas or complete the Forge Pass. We don't actually know whether or not there's going to be a set rotation for Instinct and Bolster at this moment. We've had Season 3, we had 2 seasons of Instinct. Logic would dictate that Season 4 is going to be Bolster as well when we get it. If we get it, who knows? Now, the nice thing about the Forge here is you can choose the rarity you want to craft. Now, for most players in late game and end game, you're probably never going to touch this button, but actually you can get some advantage in some use out of 3 to 4 stars. You're probably mainly going to be focused up at 5 to 6, and I would say for mid game players or early game, you're going to be looking at this 4 to 5 star ratio using some of these epic materials, especially when we talk about Perception gear, where, you know, this set is excellent for an early to mid game player to really get their champions boosted. It gives you the accuracy that you need for most champions in that phase of your progression. In addition to being able to set your rank and rarity rewards, these are important here, you can use charms. Now, there are 4 different types of charms. We have a rank charm. This will give you 2 times the chance to increase the rank, that's the star rating, of the artifact you get out of the recipe. It targets the end point, so it boosts the 5, the 6, or the 4 star here. We're going to look at the specific math behind this further in the video, but this is what it generally does. And then for the rarity charm, it does exactly the same thing, but instead for the rarity, it'll give you 2 times chance of getting the epic or the legendary, and it takes those odds out of the rare. We also have type charms, so this will improve the chance of you getting a slot, a specific piece of equipment. And then finally we have substat charms. Notice there isn't a charm for primary stat. There's no way that you can actually control what primary stat you get out of the artifact. You can only manipulate the substat speeds. Now, here's some of the information that is actually really important that you will probably not read because it's not very obvious. What we need to do is click on this chances tab here. So the chances will give you basically the probabilities. It doesn't tell you necessarily in the detail that I'm going to give you, but it gives you an overview. So you can see the odds of you getting all the specific percentages for all the different crafts. You've got the rank charm here. You've also got the rank charms being used here. So it's pretty, considering this is a raid, this is very detailed in terms of the odds for you getting something. When we get past the rank and rarity, then we get into the slots and we get into the substats. These are pretty much even distribution odds. That means there's an equal chance of you getting any of the slots. Now, if you use the charm to boost your chances, it effectively takes the charm's specific categorization. Is it a weapon? Is it a shield? And it boosts that specific odds by 2, and it takes the additional probability out of the other substats. We'll go into more detail in the next section when we look at the math on Excel. Now, the key thing I want to note about here, obviously, these are all the possible primary stats you can get on a piece. We know this. You can see, again, it's equal probability, it's equal distribution, there's an equal chance you can get any of these possible primary stats. The thing we need to note is that even though there are 11 substats, you can only get 10 possible substats because one of them will always become the primary stat. So technically the odds are around about 9% coded for each individual substat, but it'll always end up being 10% because one of those substats will be out of the pool. Again, we'll talk in more detail in the next section. The thing that I really want to point out here is these bullet points that are noted here. These are very important, specifically for how the substat charms work. How primary stats and substats are decided when crafting, this is important. It does it iteratively. So it decides the primary stat, then it's going to decide which substat you get each stage, one by one. So it's a separate individual opportunity. It doesn't necessarily change the probability of you getting a specific substat, but it does make an important note about how the substat charms work. Each available stat at any stage has equal odds of being chosen. We've covered this. For example, if there are 10 stats available, each has a 10% chance of being chosen. No artifact can have the same stat as both the primary and substat. These are principles that happen throughout the entire game, so we know none of these matter. These are pretty common knowledge. What is not common knowledge is these substat charms, and this is what I didn't know when I first recorded this video. Substat charms increase the odds of getting a specific substat. Makes sense. You will have a 50% chance of getting your desired stat as the first substat on your artifact. So what that is basically saying is you don't get a 50% chance over 4 if you get a legendary. It's the first substat gets a 50% chance, but then subsequent are just standard rates. The increased chance applies only to the first substat. Okay, you'd think, wow, that's not so bad, it's fine. It gets worse. The selected substat may still be chosen as the artifact's primary stat, if available, in which case it won't be available as a substat. So for example, if I choose the substat charm, saying I want HP on my bolster, I can still roll HP percent as the primary, and then that substat charm is useless. It doesn't do anything. I'm wasting my charm. It doesn't guarantee that it's not going to be a primary stat, which it probably should to some extent. The last part is also important. The selected substat will be excluded from the possible substat options from any second, third, or fourth substats the artifact may have, even if not selected as the first substat. So let me break that down to you. If I use a HP charm on my bolster and the first substat of that thing is not HP, the corresponding subsequent substats cannot be HP. It is taken out of the pool. Why this is like this, I don't know. Even though it doesn't necessarily remove the benefits of using a substat charm, you still get slightly improved odds. It's really egregious that they effectively go, well, you might not get it because you got it as a primary stat, and if you did that, then the substat's useless, but we'll still use your charm. And if you then don't get it as the first substat, you can't even get it as a secondary one as a lucky roll. It's almost like you're putting all your cards on the table, and then if you lose the pot, you lose everything. This is an important thing to remember about substats. It affected my numbers dramatically. I'll tell you, when I started this, I was at like, wow, substat charms are really good. By the time I figured all this out, I'm left with substat charms are all right. So with that said, what I want to do now is just compare how much the charms actually improve your odds for getting better things, so we can determine which things really matter, and then we're going to cover how you can use the Forge to maximize your potential. So what I've done here is I've mapped out all the numbers here so we can see what was in that view that I showed you before. So we just got a list of all the different odds and probabilities. As you can see, all the odds gets put into the higher star rating. So if I put a rank and rarity charm on 3 to 4 star, it'll boost my odds of a 4 star and reduce my odds of a 3 star. Same with a 5 star, same with a 6 star. I would note that you basically get like a reduction in the 6 star odds here. You start a 40% chance to get the better option, then 35, then 25. So it kind of gets worse as you go higher up. In terms of the rarity, epic, legendary, we've got the odds. It doesn't really matter what recipe what star rating you use. It's the same across the board. And we can see again, it doubles the legendary odd, it doubles the epic odd, and then it reduces the rare odds. I've put these numbers here. Some of them need to be clarified. Obviously, the 16% here is a one-time roll, so it's just 16% for get any of these. And then when you use a type charm, you'll get a 33% chance to land it, and then the rest will be a 13.33% chance. In terms of the substats, it's actually 10%. It's coded as 9.09 because each individual odds is, there's 11 divided by 100 is 9.09. But one of these will always be taken out of the pool because one of them will be the primary stat. So you've got 10% odds here. The way that it works with the substat then, it basically is saying 50%. So when you do the first substat, it's 50% for the substat charm you've chosen, and then it's about 5.5% chance for every other slot because obviously one of them will be taken out. It's in the primary. Now this is what I wanted to do really, was basically work out what are my odds of getting a 6 star legendary, a 5 star epic, and then also looking at the impact of using charms or not using charms. So in the first column here, we've got the 3 to 4 star recipe, and then we've got no boost. So we basically have the individual odds of me getting a 3 star legendary, a 4 star legendary, a 4 star epic, a 4 star rare. And we can see the odds here, they all add up to 100%. This is what you'll get. So you get like a 3% chance at a 4 star legendary with this 3 to 4 star recipe. If we use the boost, and what I mean by double boost, I'm saying rank and rarity charms here, it goes up to 12%. So you can see the 4 star epic and 4 star legendary is getting a 300% chance increase of being able to get those particular outputs. And it's being taken off the lower, sort of less desirable star rating and rarities at 82% loss here. We go from 41% down to 7% with a double boost. And you can see that translates higher. Basically, it's consistent on all three types of recipes here. The top two desirable outcomes, the epic and legendary of the highest star rating, gets a 300% boost, and the lowest outcome significantly loses its value. The 5 to 6 star though does slow down. As you notice here, we were losing probability in the 3 star epic and 3 star legendary. We actually gain a little bit in the 5 star epic and 5 star legendary over here. So what we can conclude from this is rank and rarity charms are well worth it because it gives you a significant amount of chance to get that 6 star epic and 6 star legendary, or the 5 star epic, 5 star legendary, and so forth. It's well worth it. Now in terms of the substat boost charms, this is where I had originally messed up the video, and to be honest, it was just such a big mess up, I re-recorded it. We basically have a 20% chance unboosted of getting a specific substat we want. So if we want that HP percentage on bolster, we have a 20% chance to get it on rare without any charms. On epic, it's 30%, and then on legendary, it is a 40% chance. If I then boost it, it becomes a fixed 50% chance because it's 50% for the first substat, otherwise it just doesn't happen. So we do get some, it does improve your odds, especially for rare. You get 150% more chance you're going to get that substat. For epic, it's a 66.67% chance increase. So when I mean increased odds here, I'm not saying you get a 66% more chance to get it. I'm saying you get 66% more probability in your outcome. You're going from 30 to 50. So it's a 20% increase, but that is overall a 66% increase from your base. In terms of legendary, it's only 25% more probability being added onto the pool. So what this basically means, when I did it the old way, when I originally thought, well, I've got a 50% chance over 4 rolls, that was my initial understanding, that the substat charm would basically give him a 50% chance of getting that substat regardless of the rolls. We were looking at 200 to 300% more chance, more probability. It was going to something like 93.75% rather than 50%, which is amazing. It's really good. This is probably why Plarium didn't do that and fixed it to that first substat, because effectively that would have almost guaranteed you to get the substat you want, which is actually really powerful in my opinion. It's really good, but there you go. In this instance, it's a 50-50. You basically get it or you don't, and it's also kind of unfair because if you get it in the primary stat, you don't even get to use the charm, but it still consumes it. So when it comes to substat charms, they are still worth using, especially if you're looking for niche builds or you're trying to force a specific build. But keep in mind, it's only the first substat. It's not going to add a substantial amount more into your artifact output. So let's talk about some tips and tricks about the Forge and where to use it. When do you forge? What do you do? So the first thing I would 100% say to people, don't forge outside of clan versus clan unless you really need to. Clan versus clan is a great time to do forging because you can get a fair amount of points. Let's just take a look at the objectives down here. You will get 500 clan versus clan points if you can make a rank 6 legendary artifact. Now we just said to get a rank 6 legendary artifact, if you're doing the 5 to 6, it's about an 8% chance. So there's not a terrible chance for you to get one of those. If I do a quick 10 pull here on my bolster set down here, if I just use my rank and rarity charms, I would always recommend you use them for Doom Tower sets and specifically for Forge Pass. More than anything, I would say 100% save them for this. I'm going to put HP Charm in there and I'm just going to craft 10. You'll see how many clan versus clan points we get now from just one 10 pull. 1,500 tournament points. That's nearly a full book. And you can do this for all the perception gear. You don't have to use rank and rarity for perception gear, but you can see how you can quickly pull 20 to 30 to 40,000 clan versus clan points. In addition, also, you'll make some silver. So you can use that silver for your artifact enhancement events or for more clan versus clan points. You will get clan versus clan points for upgrading artifacts, so you can convert your forged materials either by upgrading the equipment that you've got or by upgrading other equipment using the silver you've generated from forging. Now, I often get enough Magisteel and I'm sitting always near at 10,000. I don't do as much as Arena as I used to now that I've completed Great Hall, but I do a fair amount in Gold 5 if I'm farming there. Again, core hammers, I would save them for clan versus clan. Use your rank and rarity charms so you get a good opportunity of getting some decent swift parry. It doesn't always work, but it gives you the best opportunity of getting this equipment. I would say don't use your rank and rarity forge for perception and resilience because you will get a lot of these materials. You don't really need to burn your rank and rarity, whereas when you're doing something like Doom Tower bosses, I've done a lot of Griffin. I farmed stage 90 hard. I've done a lot of 90 Griffin. I farmed it pretty much the entire rotation and I'm at about 435 here, which obviously divided by 5 is about 200 crafts here. So I can create a lot of these. Now, I'm going to prioritize my rank and rarity for my bolster more than Guardian, but then I will also try to use as many on Guardian. And the same thing with Lethal. You know, these sets are very powerful. You should try and prioritize your rank and rarity for those and not do so for perception. The other tip I want to give you, obviously, if you don't know, if you're a late game or end game player, you'll probably never click on this button, but you will pick up a lot of these rubbishy kind of rare stuff that you will not use. Obviously, for an early to mid game player, you might still be on 3 to 4 star, 4 to 5 star. You will need those rare materials. But once you progress to a point where all you craft is 5 to 6, you can come in here, you can use the craft by 10, and you can just make yourself some clan versus clan points. This will probably get me about 500 points, 400 points. I've got 125 there. We had a lot of 3 stars. We can then just sell this from a little bit of extra silver. We're not talking mountains of silver or mountains of clan versus clan points, but you could pick up an extra 5k to 10k clan versus clan points for basically no investment whatsoever because you're not using these materials or resources. In terms of the artifact sets here that are worth you actually getting, I would 100% recommend you use Untouchable on rotation 1 for Doom Tower. On Doom Tower rotation 2, I would recommend Guardian. And then Doom Tower 3, you can choose between either Lethal or Fortitude, in my opinion. Lethal, in my opinion, is still stronger. It's an upgraded Savage set, and Bommel is very difficult to farm reliably. So I would recommend you go Lethal, as you can farm that quite quickly on even at stage 120 if you have the right champions. So there you go, guys. That is the end of the video. I hope you learned something new about how to use the Forge and you found this useful for optimizing your gameplay and trying to help you out clan versus clan and other things. Even I've learned something new in this with the really shady substat charm setup here. Let me know in the comments what you think about that, and I will catch you in the next video.